Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Ken the Price, talking to you about you and your business. Got my good friend on, the one and only Tony Powers, one of my favorite media personalities, and he's with I Speak US, iTalkus.com, which is a great network out of the Carolinas and Georgia area, and he's on a Fox affiliate there as well. And always enjoy having you on the program. How are you, my friend?
Doing great, Kevin. A little cold here in the Southeast this week, but other than that, just fine. Looking for that global warming to happen any moment now.
Any moment now, yeah. It's now called global hedge your bets is what they're now calling it. But we're actually suffering with 53 degrees here. So life's rough here in Houston. But I've been looking at the rest of the country, and it's unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. Small children being lost for good, and walking out to their mailbox in the snow. It's just crazy. Tell me about what you guys are talking about over there at your great station.
Well, one of the things that everybody's talking about this week is Marie Harf, Jen Psaki, the State Department, and the Lucy and Ethel show going on at Foggy Bottom up in Washington, D.C., and just how stupid these so-called educated people are. I think it probably makes Scott Walker worried.
Yeah, absolutely. It is unbelievable. We have a great article about that. One of our contributors over at U.S. Daily Review wrote an incredibly sharp piece about that. And, all we need to do is export some jobs over there to the Middle East, and these people will start behaving.
Well, yeah, and I think if we open a few Burger Kings and maybe some McDonald's, and if they would just increase that minimum wage over in the Middle East, I'm sure that these people wouldn't be drawn to this, what do they call it, generic extreme violence?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that clearly we're missing a great opportunity to export capitalism and stop terrorism in one sweeping blow. Of course, that's not what they want. They want, the Obama State Department would want more subsidies and more welfare, for these kind of folks. I think it's an interesting showing of the how vast the disconnection is between the Obama administration and reality.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is actually frightening. Now, I don't know if there's really a disconnect with reality. I really don't think that they are that stupid, but they want us to believe we're that stupid because we're not nuanced enough to understand that these young men who are over there beheading people and setting people on fire and killing Christians, they're not doing it because it's their religion. They're doing it because, gosh, they just don't have the opportunities that they need. And if we would just try to reach out and understand them a little bit better and give them opportunities, then everything would be a whole lot better. But unfortunately, that is not reality. These people are either not living in reality or they're doing it on purpose. I got a feeling it's the latter.
Yeah, I think there's probably some truth to that. What's interesting is that the current leader in the ISIS movement is a medical doctor by profession. So those people even in developing countries tend to do okay financially. You really don't make serious money until you become a terrorist, and so it's kind of interesting to see how these people think. I'm not a huge fan of Atlantic magazine. It tends to be leftist, but they did an extensive article to understand ISIS, and I gotta tell you, it is so spot on. And
talking about the article in the Atlantic.
Yeah, the Atlantic magazine. It's so incredibly perceptive.
Yeah, terrific article. I read the thing. It's about 30 pages long, but it's well worth the read.
It is well worth the read. If you want to understand how these people think, because there's these naive people that think that it has nothing to do with religion and that they're using religion as a vehicle to promote their terrorist agenda. that it has something to do with religion. And this Atlantic article, and those guys are lefties. They're apologists for Obama often. They make it very clear the authenticity and the sincerity of these terrorists in terms of how they perceive their theology and how they are practically applying it.
Oh, yeah. They are really looking to bring about the end of times, and that's their goal. And until we understand that that's their goal, we're going to continue to misrepresent what it is, or at least our government's going to misrepresent what it is. And, I feel like it's almost like we're back in the days of Chamberlain again, and it's like this administration is in just total denial, or they know what's going on, and they just don't want to get involved. Maybe Obama just wants to wait until he gets out of office because he was going to stop all wars. He was going to make the oceans recede. All those things aren't happening, and I think he just doesn't want to get involved.
Yep. I got to tell you, I always found Obama as a Muslim argument to be a little ridiculous. For years, I just didn't see that. I believe that Barack Obama was a secular humanist, a typical, maybe even Marxist secular humanist. I never thought he was a Muslim, but I got to tell you, his apologetic approach and his disconnection in terms of how he talks about reality really makes you begin to wonder about that. I'm beginning to wonder if maybe he is, and maybe he is one who's even sympathetic to the most extreme varieties of it.
Well, yeah, he did yesterday. I don't know if you heard, but in their big summit on generic violent terrorism, or violent extremism. It's incredible, the names they come up with this, and the way they have to twist themselves into a pretzel to try to not name it. But I do believe that the president probably is very sympathetic to the Muslim faith. After all, his father was a Muslim. He did spend a lot of time in Indonesia as he was growing up. So he grew up around the Muslim faith and probably was indoctrinated with it when he was younger. If he's converted, well, that's great, but the fact is that he is an apologist, and that's the problem. He just cannot bring himself to say that the faith of his father is responsible for all this violence and this terror. There's
clear record of when he went to school as a child, and they required you to say whether you were Muslim or Christian. He wrote down Muslim. So, but I just found that all out of convenience, and out of familiarity. I was one of the least likely to ever believe that he was motivated by being Islamic. I just thought he was a Neville Chamberlain, secular humanist, kumbaya. Humans in the end are going to do what's best for humans. They're not going to hurt others. The same kind of stuff that threw Britain into World War II and the whole world into World War II with Neville Chamberlain's Peace in Our Time. I kind of thought he was more like that, but my view is changing. And now, when we come back, I want to go into this a little further, talking to my good friend Tony Powers. Great topic. I want to talk a little bit about the fact now ISIS. So the president says Christians were just like this. We're just like these terrorists at one point, and then the next within days later, almost like the White House and ISIS playbook are hand in hand. ISIS says they're going to go after Rome. I found that rather interesting. You too had to find it fascinating that the speech that Obama delivered comparing Christians to ISIS, and then within days after that, and referring to the Crusades, and then within days, 48 hours practically, the ISIS declares that its next goal is Rome, which people can dismiss that all they want. I certainly wouldn't if I were a strategic policy person.
He has to go all the way back to the 13th century to find a comparison between Christianity and ISIS. But actually, if he did a little bit of study of history, he would have realized that it was the Muslim hordes that were moving all the way up from Africa and through the Middle East and into Spain, and they were actually taking over all of these places where Christians went to worship, and they were killing Christians. So the Crusades wasn't started by the Christians. It was actually started by the Muslims. It was in response to that that we had the Crusades. Now, there was a lot of barbaric stuff that went on both sides of that fight, but the fact is, it was the 13th century. Hopefully, he accused Putin of fighting 20th century war in the 21st century. He's actually going back and comparing what the Muslims are doing today and these Islamic terrorists, Islamo-fascists, what they're doing with the Crusades, which is on its face ridiculous. That's the 13th century war, Mr. President. Sure, they're fighting a 13th century war. We have to defend ourselves against it, and we have to stop it. This is genocide that's taking place. It's like looking the other way as the Jews were being annihilated back during World War II. We cannot let this stand. He won't do anything about it, and he has basically become an apologist for it.
So obviously, and I cannot concur with you more, not only does he go back, several hundred years, but he goes and knowing that Americans really don't study much history, he finds another scenario where Christians, in fact, were victims, and it's like a repeat of that. Almost the whole scenario was a repeat of that. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the whole threat now that ISIS is saying verbal threats now against Italy. Talk a little bit about that, against Rome specifically. What were your thoughts about that?
Well, when they made those threats against Rome, remember that was in the video where they had just beheaded the 21 Coptic Christians from Egypt, and basically they were calling those people the people of the cross. Again, the denial that this is a religious war is ridiculous, and they want to. If you read that article in the Atlantic as you did, and I encourage everybody to read it as well, what ISIS really wants, I believe, is the title of that article. You will find out what they really want, and what they really want is Rome, which is now considered the West, and Christian, and really any secular civilization in the world. That's what ISIS is against. Anything that doesn't follow their brand of Sharia law and doesn't follow the Quran the way that they understand it, they want to have a cataclysmic battle. They want the apocalypse to happen now. And that's their desire, and until we realize that, we are going to continue to see this barbarism, and we're going to continue to see people being murdered by the thousands.
Right. And by the way, the listener can go to usdailyreview.com and just click the politics section, and you will find that article that we're referring to prominently there. We'll begin the article there, and you can finish it at Atlantic, but we want to make it easier for you to find. It is the most thoughtful, thorough examination that seemed to me and it was so refreshing because, you and I both are so frustrated by the incredible bias we see all the time, frankly, from both sides, but obviously the vast majority of it is liberal. But this was just a clear, hate to tell you, but this is what it's really like. This is what we're dealing with. Account of what's going on with these people. It was incredible. It was one of the best readings I've seen on the topic in maybe since all this conflict began.
Well, and what is so frightening, and not to shift gears here, but the fact that our southern border is standing wide open. We had a judge this week who knocked down Obama's amnesty, his executive orders on that. Let's hope that the courts hold that up and prevent Obama from doing what he wants to do, which would just draw more people across that border. But he's not going to close that border. Nothing is going to happen down there. We're at risk in this country, and we have a president who is standing idly by and allowing Americans to be put at risk by just for political reasons. He wants more Democrats coming across that southern border, and that is a frightening scenario. And if anybody doesn't think ISIS knows about that open southern border, they're insane. As you mentioned earlier, their leader was a medical doctor. It seems kind of strange now they're selling organs. These people are smart. They have a business plan. They are organized, and believe me, they're going to come after us.
Yeah, and they love how the president dismisses them as just insane individuals who are purely maniacal, and he basically underestimates them. All he tries to do is underestimate them and their reach, and all they do is laugh as they go further every single time. Tony Powers is awesome. Consider him a good friend, and I love the work he does. italkus.com, and make sure you check him out. Check out the great broadcasting that comes out of there. Thank you so much, my friend.
My pleasure, Kevin.
Look forward to being with you again soon.